Hello everyone. This video will show transformation of trigonometric functions. To better understand how this general function form right here works, let's have some examples. Okay, so we're going to go over this example here. So we're going to use the four-step process to sketch the graph of this function. So the first step is to determine the amplitude, determine the equation of the midline. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that down here. So the amplitude is the coefficient of either sine or cosine, the one in the beginning. So our amplitude here is 2. And we determine the midline. The midline is actually equal to k, so that in this case right here, our k is equal to 1. And we can rewrite this in equation form, that's y equals 1. So that will be our midline. The second step is to determine the starting point or where the graph begins. So I'm going to go ahead and write the second step right here. To get the starting point, we are going to set the one inside the parentheses equal to 0. So we can go ahead and say that this equation right here is x over 3 is equal to 0. So that we can have x by itself. We go ahead and multiply both sides by 3. And we're going to multiply this by 3. So we are left with x is equal to 0. So the graph of this function starts at x equals 0. The third step is to determine the period. The formula for period is 2 pi over b. Now we remember that the b is the coefficient of the x. In this case right here, we can go ahead and rewrite this part right here as 1/3 x. So they're pretty much the same thing, which tells us that our b is 1/3. So I go ahead and plug that in here. So this would come out 2 pi over 1/3. Since this is a complex fraction, we're going to copy the numerator, which is 2 pi. And we flip the denominator and multiply across. So that is 3 over 1. So in this case right here, our period is 6 pi. Now let's move on to the fourth step. So for the fourth step, we are supposed to find the end point or where the graph ends if we take only one cycle. So the formula for the end point is the starting point, the one that we get on the second step, plus the period, the one that we get in the third step. So in this case right here, we got a 0 plus 6 pi. So our end point is 6 pi. So we're now ready to sketch the graph. So we're going to draw the midline first, which is y equals 1. So the midline is sitting here. Now we are going to put 5 dots or 5 points on the midline. So this will be the first point. This is the last point right here. And then we take the middle. And the middle of these two, and the middle of these two. Now let's label the values for this. We start with the starting point, which is at 0. So this will be the starting point. And the end point here is at 6 pi. So I'm going to put 6 pi right here. Now we are going to determine the coordinates on the x-axis for the rest of these 3 dots here. Now, this is what we're going to do. To find the middle, we are going to add the first and the last here and then multiply it by 1/2. So I go ahead and say 0 plus 6 pi and then multiply this by 1/2. So 0 plus 6 pi is 6 pi times 1/2. So that would be 3 pi. So the value here is 3 pi, and that makes sense because half of or between 0 and 6 pi is 3 pi. Now let's find the middle between 0 and 3 pi. So we pretty much do the same thing. We add this value and the 3 pi to get the middle. So that would be 0 plus 3 pi, multiply this by 1/2. So 0 plus 3 pi is 3 pi times 1/2 is 3 pi over 2. So this is 3 pi over 2 right here. And then we find the middle between 3 pi and 6 pi. We do the same thing. We are adding 3 pi plus 6 pi and then multiply it by 1/2. So 3 pi plus 6 pi is 9 pi and then multiply it by 1/2. So that is 9 pi over 2. So we're going to go ahead and write 9 pi over 2 right there. Since we have a positive cosine, we are going to start with an amplitude of 2. So that means we go up 2 and down 2. So this would be 1, 2. So this is where we start. Since this is cosine, so it's going to go down here. And then, so that's amplitude of 2. And then the amplitude would be 2 going down. So that's 1, 2. So it's going to go down over here. And then it goes up again there, and then it goes up here. So this is the graph of this function that we have here using only one cycle. So that is how we sketch this given function that we have up there.